Hey, that's a first. We're running only 20 minutes late on this edition of the awards, and that is a first for the many, many years that I've been hosting it. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Menaka Doshi, and I'm delighted to welcome all of you to RedInk Awards 2021. Now, this is my journalism booster, an opportunity to see some great journalism, which is re-energizing in every possible way. So I truly am delighted to be here this evening. We're not at the NCPA. We're all in our individual homes, in our living rooms, or in our offices, and tuning in to this incredible awards. Now, it's been a monumental 2 years since we last met for journalists across the world and in India. We've lost compatriots to disease and despair. They fell to hatred and violence, leaving behind only their words, images, and courage. In this time, while many in mainstream media chose the path of appeasement, others stood up and did their job bravely day after day, documenting migrants walking back home, farmers camped outside Delhi, failing healthcare facilities across the country, braving arrests, fighting bad laws, and going to jail. If there have been low lows in the past 2 years, as well as this year, there have also been the high of seeing two incredibly courageous journalists win the Nobel Peace Prize. So we gather here tonight to document these events, memorialize the best work from amongst all of us, and recognize two incredible journalists at the RedInk Awards 2021. The awards by the fraternity for the fraternity. To begin with, I'm going to ask Gurbir Singh, chairman of the Mumbai Press Club, to join us tonight and introduce the awards. Gurbir.
Thank you, Menka. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. Welcome our chief guest, Justice Ramana. Welcome all our friends who have been away for so long. We've reconvened as the RedInk Awards finale after a very long time. In the meantime, we've had serious losses. We've lost a lot of our friends. A lot of our friends have been in trouble. Just to give you an example, 𝐏𝐫𝐬𝐬𝐳, a senior reporter, a senior photographer of the Hindu, passed away a couple of months ago. Saroj Tripathi, a journalist of the Navbharat Times, is no more with us. Shashi Balega from the Femina and later HT, and also one of the anchors of the Tata Lit Fest, again passed away quite tragically. After that, not only from Mumbai, but from further shores, there's been Mr. Sunil Jain, Chanchal Pal Chauhan of the Economic Times. These are some of the people who we respected and adored, and they're no more with us. And who can forget Vinod Dua, a recipient of the RedInk Awards 3 years ago, again went away, took away and went away because of complications arising out of Corona. Friends, it's not just these 13 or 14 people that we are talking about. We are talking about more than 400 journalists who have lost their lives to this infection. Not only that, journalists have been forced to work in conditions which is much beyond the call of duty. 50 journalists right in the first wave, 50 photographers right in the first wave of Corona contracted the infection and had to be quarantined together. Today, they have recovered and are working well, but they faced the stigma in the first wave. Thereafter, we find that these are the warriors who went out much beyond the call of duty. People from Bhaskar, from the Daily Bhaskar, for instance, went to crematoriums, went to mortuaries, counted the dead, and exposed state governments which were trying to show that there were not so many deaths. But these are the people who also put their life on a limb. Friends, we must commend these people who overnight became Corona warriors in the true sense of the word. Beyond this, journalists have been facing a different kind of oppression, a different kind of challenge, which we must also outline. First, we faced the challenge from the managements. Unfortunately, companies did not stand up for their journalists and non-journalist employees. This is unfortunate. Many of them were fired and had to look for jobs. Many of them faced wage cuts and could not survive with the meager wages that were paid to them. These are the people who should have been stood up by the companies. The companies should have supported their staff. It did not happen. Again, beyond this, the state, which said that they would support Corona warriors, unfortunately did not. There was oppression from the state, FIRs filed by various state governments against journalists who went and exposed the lacuna, the bad preparation and the inability of health systems to face up to the challenge. We also had, for instance, there was the instance in Bandra in Mumbai, where journalist Rahul Kulkarni on 15th April 2020 was filming. He was a video journalist. He was filming and reporting on the immigrants who had collected in Lanjamas protesting that trains were not available. And FIRs were filed against him and his crew. There's also been the widespread use of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act against journalists. Shah Meera Singh of Assam, two journalists from HW News. Who can forget Siddiqui Kappan, who was rushing to Hathras to cover the gang rape, and he was arrested under UAPA. Today he's languishing in jail and he needs our support. Friends, we have to remember that these are the big challenges before us. Beyond this, journalism as a defense reaction has moved online, and where there has been repression of mainline newspapers, of mainline video programs and channels, journalism has moved to various digital forms and is flourishing there. However, here too we face the challenge of the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines, what is called the Ethics Code, where the last frontier of fairly free journalism is sought to be curbed. It is not a joke that today, out of 180 nations, we are 143rd on the Freedom Index, as per the Reporters Beyond Borders have been surveying. It's not good news at all. But there is one thing that keeps us on. The fact that if the powers that be, if the establishment crushes one form of journalism or takes out or is repressive towards one form of journalism, it sprouts up again. In the last 4 to 5 years, we've seen hundreds of new digital platforms open. And if one closes down, there are good stories in another. Friends, welcome to all the great stories, all to the great journalism that we are presenting. And we look forward to your activity and to your participation in the coming RedInk Awards, which you will see from henceforth. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Gurpreet. And as Gurpreet pointed out, we have some great journalism under the spotlight tonight. We have two great journalists that we hope to honor tonight and who honor us with their own work. And we also will hear from the Chief Justice of India, Chief Justice Ramana. And we have a media debate lined up for later in the program with three very eminent journalists. So I do hope you'll stay with us all through the course of the next 60 to 90 minutes or so. Now, this is the 10th year of the RedInk Awards, 10 years of raising the bar of good journalism, promoting best practices, fair play, and high ethical standards in journalism. 10 years of identifying exciting new work, new talent, and journalism of courage. 10 years of bringing truth to light.
There is a price to bringing truth to light. We pay it with our sweat. We pay it with our freedom, our safety, our health. We pay it with our loved ones, our family, our sanity. We pay it without asking the cost of the sacrifice. We pay it without stopping to even think of the price. We pay it with our bodies. We pay it with our blood. The truth is black and white, and the ink it needs is red. Celebrating 10 years of bringing truth to light.
All right, let's get started with the awards themselves, decided by a jury of luminaries. They had to pick from amongst 1,500 entries across categories this year. Each category had its own jury of specialists, and a curator was assigned the job of sifting through all these many entries and helping to guide the judges. So thank you to all the curators and the esteemed jury members for their hard work and commitment. Now, our first award category tonight is the award for reporting on business and economy. It's been a year of severe contraction and then a year of gradual recovery, a year in which we saw widening gaps and polarized fortunes. The Sensex soared even as India's informal sector gasped for breath. The awards for business and economy reporting are being presented in association with L&T Financial Services. Here are the nominees for the first award in that category. This is reporting on business and economy in print. And the winner in this category is Varsha Torgalkar of Stories Asia for her story on the child labor behind the jeans you wear. Many congratulations, Varsha. Now for the same category, but reporting in a different medium, that is reporting on business and economy in television. Here are the nominees. The winner in this category is Mrityunjay Singh of ABP News Network for his story on Corona lockdown के बीच अब किसानों पर पड़ रही है कर्ज की मार देखिए. Many congratulations, Mrityunjay, for the outstanding work. Let's move on to our next category. This is reporting on crime. There's just one subcategory here, which is the print medium. Now, someone once said that crime does not pay as well as politics. For these nominees, though, it might earn them an award. And the winner in this category, that is reporting on crime in the print medium, is Sagar for The Caravan. This is for his exclusive story on statements of 33 inmates that belied the CBI's claim of no murders in the Muzaffarpur shelter home case. Congratulations to Sagar for this deeply investigative work. Next up, we have the award for reporting on the environment. Now, I have no pithy quote for this next category. It is an underfunded, underserved cause, but there are a brave few. So let's start with the nominees for the print award in this category. The winner in this category, or should I say winners, are Ishan Kakreti, Kundan Pandey, Sundaram Ramanathan, and Sugandha Arora of the Down to Earth team. This is for their story, Black Business. Many congratulations to the entire team for their combined effort. And now for the nominees for reporting on the environment in the television media. And the winner is Sophia Bind of Media One TV for her live video on the floods and wounded people in Kerala. Congratulations to Sophia for her great work. We're now on to the award for reporting on health and wellness. Now, this category is dominated by courageous women putting governments, healthcare service providers, and pharmaceutical companies on the mat. Reporting on health and wellness. First up, let's listen in to what one of the jury members has to say.
Good evening. On behalf of the jury that looked at health and wellness entries for the RedInk Journalist Awards, I'm here to share with you our observations and also our personal wishes to all the journalists who made the submissions. As a jury, we had difficulty choosing the final awardees given the exceptional quality of work and also the exceptional times within which this work was actually rendered. The final awardees that were identified for the digital and the broadcast media are individuals who not only have told us exceptional stories, have shown a lot of courage, but also have affirmed state responsibility and people's rights. As a jury, we think these are COVID warriors. We salute and honor them. Thank you very much.
Well, these are the nominees for those who've been selected for reporting on health and wellness in the print category. And the winner is Priyanka Pula of The Wire for her explosive story on how India is undercounting its COVID-19 deaths. Outstanding work by Priyanka, including her most recent piece on Remdesivir. Congratulations. And now for reporting in the same category, but on the television medium, here are the nominees. And the winner in this category, or winners, are Faye D'Souza and Arun Rangaswamy of Free Media Interactive for their excellent coverage inside KEM Hospital. The story was called COVID Frontline. Congratulations to Faye and to Arun. Well, if anything could deplete faster than the environment, it's the condition of human rights in this country and across the world. Yes, that's our next category. And this one, which is reporting for human rights, is awarded tonight in association with Ad Factors PR. First up, let's hear what one of the jury members has to say.
I was honored to be part of the RedInk jury because journalism is under attack in our country right now, and it was wonderful to see so many brave articles in the papers and internet, as well as videos that are talking about real issues in our country. So I congratulate all the winners. All the articles that we looked at were excellent, so it was a hard choice for us to make. But I also congratulate the Press Club for organizing an event like this, and they've been doing it for many years. So thank you and best wishes.
Anand Patwardhan there. Here are the nominees for reporting on human rights in the print category. We have joint awards, or joint winners rather, for this award. So please congratulate both Kumar Sambhav Srivastav of HuffPost for are documents that show the Modi government building a 360-degree database to track every Indian. That's the story that he's won this award for, and winning it jointly with him is Prabhakar Tamilarasu of the Federal. This is for Prabhakar's story on sexual torture inflicted on father and son in Tamil Nadu while in police custody. To Prabhakar as well as to Kumar, congratulations for your very brave journalism. And now we have reporting on human rights in the television medium. Here are the nominees. The winners for reporting on human rights in the television category are Tridip Kanti Mandal and Syed Shahryar of The Quint. This is for their story, My Life in Kashmir, a year since the abrogation of Article 370. Congratulations, The Quint, to Tridip and to Syed for making us look very good. Next up is the award for reporting on lifestyle and entertainment. In a year full of despair, these reporters worked hard to bring us some cheer and divert our attention. Now, the first category here is reporting on lifestyle and entertainment in the print medium. This award is being presented in association with Viacom 18. Here are the nominees. There is only one award, and this is only for the print medium, but we do have two winners in this category as well. Kathakali Chanda of Forbes India. This is for Kathakali's story on how Rambo Circus went online, and Mikpi Silthau of CNN for a story on the only form of gambling allowed in this Indian state is based on dreaming. Congratulations to both of them for winning this award. Next, we have the award for reporting on politics. This is the journalism job that deserves hazard pay. We have both media in this. The print category first. Here are the nominees. The winner in this category is Abhishek Angad of the Indian Express for his series of exclusive and explosive stories. Congratulations, Abhishek, for winning the award on reporting on politics in the print category. And here are the nominees for reporting on politics in the television category. The winner is Saurabh Shukla of NDTV India. This is for his story, Delhi Sarkar ke daawon par uthe sawal, ek baar khane ke liye bhi taras rahe hain log. Congratulations, Saurabh, for winning the award for reporting on politics in the television category. Next up, we are reporting on science and innovation. This award is being given out in association with Glenmark Pharmaceuticals. Joining us tonight is one of the jury members to talk about this category.
The print category, the decision was quite easy. All the judges were unanimous. In fact, the winner was on the list of all the judges. Though we had a very tough decision to make for the video category, and finally we had to arrive at a compromise in the sense that we have decided to award it jointly to the two awardees whom we thought were the best this year.
All right, let's start with the nominees for the print category first. The winner in this category is Bhavya Dore of 52. This is for her story on collisions. Congratulations, Bhavya, for winning the award on reporting on science and innovation in the print category. And now we have the nominees for reporting in the television medium. We have joint winners in this category tonight. Ganesh Raghunath Kale of News 18 Lokmat. This is for Ganesh's story on farming technology experience of farmers. And Pallava Bagla of the Indian Science Channel. This is for Pallava's story on world's first fully equipped COVID-19 testing lab. So to both Ganesh and Pallava, a big congratulations. Right. One of the happier moments last year, this year, I was watching Team India at both the Olympics and the Paralympics. So yes, you've guessed it right. Our next award category is for reporting on sports. This is being presented in association with the Aditya Birla Group. Let me correct that. It's reporting for sport, on sport, in the print medium. Now, before I get to the nominees and the award itself, here's what one jury member had to say.
Selecting the winner of the RedInk Award in the sports category this year was a tough task. While 𝐏𝐫𝐬𝐧𝐵, who had moderated and shortlisted the entries, had done a wonderful job. He actually made things very difficult for the jury, which is Virendra Skina, Aparna Popat and me, because there were about 11, 12 entries which he finally gave us. They were all so compelling. There was some long reads, some terrific features, some news breaks, all of which require some high quality journalism. That was really our concern. And also then what would be the impact? And I think we worked on that, the jury, that what was the story which left a lasting impact on you as a reader, and that became the determinant. I'm not going to reveal here, you'll probably hear it on the stage who's the winner, but I can tell you it was one hell of a task picking the winner.
All right, my living room is the stage, and yeah, thank you for not revealing the winner. Before we get to the winner, here are the nominees. The winner for reporting on sport in the print medium is Mihir Vasavra of the Indian Express. Mihir wins this for exposing the 10-year record at the SAI, 45 complaints of sexual harassment, 29 against coaches. An explosive, hardworking story by Mihir. Congratulations for winning this award. The next category is the arts. This is for the print medium. Here's our jury talking about it.
What the two stories won the award for was doffing their hat to good taste, decency and dignity, sense of humor, and progressive thought. Thank you and all the best to the winners, shortlisted entries, as well as others who participated in this category.
Well, here are the nominees for reporting on arts in the print category. Yes, unfortunately, I think the music person is having an off night tonight. You can't hear it very loud and clear, but it's supposed to be what they call fanfare music. We have two joint winners tonight for this category. Mahtab Alam of The Wire for Mahtab's story on Tom Alter, the Angrez who wrote his memoir in Urdu, and Majid Makbul of The Mint. This Majid story is Masood Hussain is painting the grief and anger of the Kashmiri people. So to Mahtab and Majid, congratulations for winning this award. Next up, the people who put meaning into the saying, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Here are the nominees for the Big Picture Award. We have a runner-up and a winner in this category. So let me start first with recognizing the runner-up, Manisha Mondal of The Print. This is for her exclusive picture of the UP police cremating the Hathras gang rape victim at just past 2 a.m. in the morning, whilst keeping the protesting family away, a picture that none of us will be able to delete from our conscience. That's Manisha Mondal, the runner-up in this category. And if that work is the runner-up, then you can imagine what the winning picture is. This is by Apurva Divakar Salkade of Outlook for Apurva's series on migrant workers suffering during the COVID crisis. Congratulations to Manisha and to Apurva for their very, very emphatic work. The next category is reporting on women empowerment and gender equality. Let's start with the nominees for reporting on this topic in the print medium. Okay, then the music guy decided to prove me wrong this evening. It's back and it's working well. The winner in this category for reporting on women empowerment and gender equality issues is Asmita Bakshi of The Mint. This is for her story, The March of Women Farmers. Congratulations, Asmita. The same category, but now the nominees for reporting in the television medium. The winner in this category is Shrikant Fakirba Bangale of BBC News Marathi. This is for Shrikant's story, घरातल्या 3 शेतकऱ्यांनी आत्महत्या केली पण ज्योती देशमुख खचल्या नाहीत. Congratulations to you, Shrikant, for your work. This is for reporting on women empowerment and gender equality on the television media. Now that brings me to our penultimate award for the evening. This is for Journalist of the Year 2020, and it is presented in association with India Bulls Housing. This award is being given out posthumously to Danish Siddiqui, who served as chief photographer of Reuters. Danish is not among us today. We lost him on 16 July this year as collateral damage in the never-ending Afghan civil war. Danish was not one of those to fear the frontiers of reporting. He was there in the Battle of Mosul, on the ground when the Rohingya were being evicted from Myanmar, and at the barricades in Hong Kong, where the youth were fighting the battle of democracy. And who can forget Danish's haunting drone images of the funeral pyres in Delhi during the second pandemic wave. For his sensitive and daring reporting in 2020 on the anti-CAA agitation, for his coverage of the Rohingya crisis, for his amazing photography that captured the heartbreaking immigration crisis during the first wave of the COVID pandemic, and for his frontline reporting from Afghanistan. We bestow on Danish Siddiqui the RedInk honor of Journalist of the Year 2020. Accepting tonight's award on behalf of Danish is his wife, Rike Siddiqui.
The wound left by my husband's death is still fresh, and memorials are a painful reminder of Danish's absence. It is hard for me to find the words to express myself, as the void left by the loss of my soulmate and the father of our 2 young children has cut deep, and it will never be filled again. On behalf of our family, though, I would like to thank the RedInk Awards for remembering Danish and honoring his work and legacy. Journalism was not merely his profession, but his passion. He wanted to capture and show the world images that many would rather have avoided. Danish didn't look through the lens with his eyes alone. It was his heart and his deeply rooted, caring soul that captured the world around him. He was driven by the hope that his pictures would touch at least a single person and push them to stand up and demand change. Even though the loss of Danish has left us overcome with grief, I hope that this spirit of his will live on in our children, and I hope that his work will continue to inspire journalists of generations to come. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight, Rike, and I think that's so well said for the magnificent work that Danish leaves us, that he didn't look through the camera lens only through his eyes, but with his heart and his soul. I know we can't put our hands together because we're all far apart, but please do remember Danish's work, his outstanding work across the many crises that India and countries across the world have faced. Well, we're now to our last award of the evening. Every year, RedInk honors a standout journalism for their invaluable contribution to the profession over a number of years. This is the Lifetime Achievement Award, and it is presented in association with Zee Entertainment. Prem Shankar Jha is a journalist that all journalists want to be. He initially worked with the United Nations Development Programme, that's the UNDP, and the World Bank, and was a sought-after economist. He then shifted full-time to journalism and led editorial teams at several leading dailies, such as the Hindustan Times, the Times of India, Economic Times, Financial Express, the Hindu, Business Standard, and he also led teams at magazines such as Outlook. Prem Shankar Jha also got a taste of real politics when he served as information advisor to the late Prime Minister VP Singh. His role of honor would not be complete without noting that he was among the early journalists, authors, who belted out a dozen or more titles on everything from Kashmir to China. He currently is a columnist for The Wire. Now, here's the citation for the award for his leadership role across newsrooms in India for over half a century, for his incisive and bold political commentary, which continues today, and for the spectrum of books that he has penned that we can all enjoy and learn from, and for keeping a straight spine in times when journalists are asked to bend and some even offer to crawl. Tonight we bestow on Prem Shankar Jha the Lifetime Achievement Award for 2020. So please put your hands together for Prem Shankar Jha. Sir, it's over to you.
Right. Well, I don't have to tell you that I am deeply honored by the Bombay press, the journalists, of giving me this award. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. About 2 years ago, the Sri Ram Foundation had given me a similar award. But there is a difference between an award that you get from readers and an award that you get from your peers and your fellow journalists. And it's that extra thing that makes this award to be very, very special. Journalists, we are all a competitive lot, and we watch our fellow reporters and analysts with an eagle eye to see what they have missed or obscured. So if I have won their approval, your approval, I would like to think that it is not just because of my writing and my views, but because of some of the choices I have had to make and made in the various positions I've held, the papers I've written for, that you just mentioned a few moments ago. Yes, I did return to India in 1966 after 5 years in the UN. And it was because At a certain point, when I was serving as an assistant president representative of the UNDP in Damascus, I began to feel that I was having too good a time. All of life till then felt like a holiday. And I felt that it was time to get down to work. And work for me meant that I should go back to India. I don't know when precisely I decided I should do this. It could have been one February in 1966 when I was woken up early in the morning by bullets slamming into the wall of the room in which I was sleeping. And when I woke up, I found myself in the middle of a very bloody coup in which more than 400 people were killed. That may have been the day when I decided that, possibly unconsciously, that I had to return to India. Because even that day, I did not feel that I was not on a holiday, that I was not a spectator. It was time, I felt, to cease to be a spectator and to become an activist or a participant at least. I had been offered a job by the Hindustan Times, so I came back to that. And I was only too glad to accept. Since then, I've had ups and downs in the career. Some of them have been touched upon. But the most important point about this entire period is I have never once regretted coming back. I have never once felt a moment when I did not feel utterly and totally engaged with what was happening in India, whether in elation or in despair. It was India, India, and India. And I hope that it is that kind of feeling in me somehow that I've managed to convey to you, which would have, triggered some of you to want to give me this award. Once again, I thank you for that. I'd like to just dwell for a few minutes upon my life and upon the people who I'm beholden to for having done whatever I have done. In a rather long and bumpy career, there have been many moments of crisis in which I've had to choose between following the dictates of my conscience and the protection of my career. I may be deluding myself, but I don't think that there has been any occasion when I have overruled my conscience to protect my career. I would like to believe that that is the reason why you have bestowed this singular honor upon me, and that you too think that through all the vicissitudes of life, I have been unswervingly true to the ethics of our profession. In any case, I would like to continue believing that. If you think I'm wrong, please don't tell me so. Remaining true to our calling as journalists has made it very easy, in fact, relatively easy, for me to identify and tell you about the two great editors under whom I had the good fortune to serve and who, to a very great extent, shaped my life. The first was 𝐁𝐵𝐫𝐢𝐧𝐵, the editor of the Hindustan Times. The second was Shyamlal, perhaps the greatest editor of his generation, who took me under his wing when I joined the Times of India in 1969. On the day I joined the Hindustan Times, 𝐁𝐵𝐫𝐢𝐧𝐵 told me why I would never regret having come back. This is what he told me. He said, I was a foreign correspondent for 16 years, 9 of them in London and 7 in Paris. I enjoyed every moment of my time in both cities, but I never felt a sense of commitment the way I felt it when I returned to India. And I think you will feel the same. After that, he said, what would you like for a drink? As for Shyamlal, whom I was privileged to work with for about 9 years, all I can say is that he not only taught me how to really write English, which is a bit different from just writing English, but also to practice what I preached to our readers every day to the best of my ability. My most lasting memory of him is a quixotic one. Time and time again, as I walked through the antechamber of his room, I would see an invitation to a reception or a dinner from the President or the Prime Minister of India lying on the secretary's desk. On them, in his small, crabby, but unmistakable handwriting, would be written one word: regret. The word, I repeat, was regret. I would therefore like to end by thanking all of you. Thank you, Menaka. Thank you, Gurbir, for having thought of me and for honoring me in this way and for making me feel that my life has not been lived in vain. But also for giving me the opportunity to acknowledge the debt I owe to these great departed souls whom I just mentioned. Thank you.
Mr. Jha, if I may ask you a question tonight,
Sure.
since we have you with us. Journalism has been through crises many times in the past and will do so many times in the future. When you look at the state of journalism today and the many forces acting for and against it, some of them technology, others political, how do you assess the state of journalism in India today and what young journalists can do to better understand and cope with many of these forces?
I think it's not just today, but if you go back right back to the beginnings of journalism in the late 17th century, the principal enemy of journalism has been its need for money. Capital, not capitalism, capital is the enemy of journalism. The more money you need, the more pressure you become amenable to. So what I've seen in my life, these 50 years, 55 years that I've been a journalist, is this constant struggle against the pressures that come, because those who have invested in journalism have become vulnerable by the act of financial investment. I sympathize with them. As an editor, I have tried to work with them and tried to take their concerns to heart. But in the end, always one needs to remember that it is one's primary duty is to the reader, to the public, not to one's employers. Now, what we've seen is very recently is that, for example, print media became more and more complex, more and more expensive, and then therefore more and more prone to pressure. We then came to television. In the very early days, do you remember those 1 hour and 2 hour sort of news things that people used to do for Doordarshan? How much energy there was, how much positivity, how much willingness to take on the establishment. Now that went when the great big television houses were set up. Then we've now got the revolution moving online, and I hope it will stay there. But as you know, our sort of great government here is doing everything it can to make sure that every single person who ever goes on into online journalism is tracked and one day may be trapped, as we have seen with the people in the 𝐏𝐫𝐤𝐳𝐲 case. It can happen to any one of us, but we have to keep fighting.
Sir, many young journalists across different media today are facing very serious mental health questions. The pressures of deadline, the pressures of technology, all news seems so much more personal, so much more direct. And of course, the other pressures that you've just discussed, whether they're political or from owners. How did you in your career stay sane, stay online, do what your conscience told you? And not what the pressures demanded?
Well, first and foremost, there are two kinds of pressures now. One I described, which is the pressure of the vulnerability of the owners of the media. But the second pressure that is coming now is the pressure of 24-hour journalism.
Yes.
And that is a terrific pressure. It does not give you time to think. The difference between when I joined journalism in the 1960s and today is that we had time to think. The technology was such that your readers were exposed to the news only a few times a day on radio or television. In our case, it was only about twice a day, morning and evening, on India radio, or in a handful of papers which you got every morning. So there was 24 hours before the next dose came to you. So now we had time to think, and we had also time to read, therefore. Today, I find that there's more and more books being written, more and more articles being written, but less and less time to read them. And that is the tragedy. I think that instant journalism can kill thoughtful journalism. And we have to, I think I've been in some ways lucky that I've been forced into situations where I've had to stand back and think and write. And I am grateful to that. And particularly, I'm grateful to the Wire for having, in a sense, given me the kind of ideal space of as much 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 words in which to express ideas in a world that's become infinitely too complex to be compressed in 800 or even 1,200 words.
Instant journalism has killed thoughtful journalism. Prem Shankar Jha, thank you for honoring us with your presence today, and congratulations on winning the Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you very much, sir, for taking my questions as well.
Thank you, Menaka. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Siddharth Bhatia, the president of the Mumbai Press Club, to please welcome our chief guest of the evening, which, as you know, is none other than the Chief Justice of India. Siddharth.
Thank you, Menaka. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Honorable Chief Justice of India, N.V. Ramana, as the chief guest of the RedInk Awards 2021 event. Sir, it is an honor for us to host you, so thank you so much for joining us here today. The RedInk Awards this year are being held in difficult times. The pandemic has affected all of us, and journalists, being frontline workers, have also suffered. But of course, we have to go out and bring stories of death and destruction, but also optimism and hope. The last 2 years have also seen unprecedented job losses of journalists all around the country. Hundreds of journalists are unemployed today. Most crucially, journalists are functioning in a very troubling and hostile environment. They have been picked up, jailed, raided for their work. In Kashmir, the internet was shut down for a very long time. Many journalists have been killed or persecuted in the last few years. And if that wasn't enough, they have also been pressured by their own organizations or editors or external forces to tone down their writing. This dangerously leads to self-censorship, something that is anathema in a democratic society. Of course, there are brave journalists who continue to write fearlessly, and the 1,500 entries we received for the awards show that journalists, wherever they are, will never stop what they're supposed to do, demand accountability, and continue to pursue the truth. With those words, I welcome and invite Justice Ramana to address the audience. Thank you.
Sri Gurbir Singh, Chairman Mumbai Press Club, Sri Siddharth Bhatia, President Mumbai Press Club, Sri Prem Shankar Jha, veteran journalist, Ms. Danish Siddiqui, other recipients of RedInk Awards in diverse categories, my dear journalist friends, ladies and gentlemen, namaskar. It gives me immense pleasure to be here with you at the RedInk Awards for Excellency in Journalism to celebrate outstanding contributions by journalists in various categories. This initiative by the Mumbai Press Club, which was first started in 2011, is praiseworthy. The city of Mumbai has been at the forefront of protecting the freedom of speech and expression. It has produced great patriots, freedom fighters, human rights activists, and journalists of great professional integrity. It is therefore apt that Mumbai Press Club adds to the city's rich legacy through this award function. I would like to congratulate all those who are being honored today. There is no doubt that a healthy democracy can thrive and survive only with a fearless and independent press. For that, journalists like you need to grow in number. As someone who started his professional career as a journalist, I can understand your difficulties and struggles. Speaking truth to power and holding up a mirror to society is an immense responsibility that is extremely difficult to fulfill. There is enormous pressure and stress upon you. In the contemporary world, performing your duty as a journalist is akin to dancing on a razor's edge. You are on your feet for long hours and constantly on call and working. Holidays are few and far between, and finding time to spend with family is difficult. The stress on your family is also immense. The wages too are not very encouraging. Women, particularly beyond metros, still find it difficult to gain foothold in the profession. Those who are serving in conflict zones are willing to risk their lives. Those on regular beats are also no longer safe. Some of those in powerful positions, both political leaders and bureaucracy, mafia of all shades, and those on wrong side of the law, none of them are comfortable with a professional journalist. As a result, you keep getting unpleasant and disturbing messages. I know it is not easy for you and your families to deal with such threats. Another worrisome trend is the concerted efforts to bracket journalists into a particular category. I can imagine how painful it is. Yet, it is an extremely satisfying profession to pursue. It is often said that the legal profession is a noble profession. I can state that the journalist's job is as noble and an integral pillar of democracy. Like the legal professional, a journalist also needs to have a strong moral fiber and a moral compass. The freedom of the press is a valuable and sacred right enshrined in the Indian Constitution. Without such a freedom, there cannot be discussion and debate that is essential for the growth of a democracy. There can be no flow of information that public requires and that a democracy demands. But the profession is vastly different from what it was when I was a journalist for a brief period. All things change. This is inevitable. As the world around us evolves, so too has the media profession and the journalism. Unless you are willing to evolve and change, you will stagnate and left behind. Now, the profession demands specialists. Earlier, one reporter could be deputed to report on diverse subjects. However, the nuance of reporting contemporary news is specific fields required specialization. Law reporting, for example, might require a person to be knowledgeable about precedents, legal history, and court procedure. The resourceful media houses in Delhi have their specialist legal editors covering the proceedings of the Supreme Court. When it comes to other Indian language media and small media houses, it is the regular political reporter who doubles up as legal reporter whenever the necessity arises. To be able to inform the readers and viewers accurately, the media needs to invest on specialists. I think it might be necessary for working journalist unions to organize training camps and orientation programs for journalists like what we do for judges. Another major change is that apart from the traditional print media, you now also have digital news media platforms and social media reporting. This changed the entire profession. Certain things about this transformation by digital media is for better. There is now more information available to people which is easily accessible. At the same time, these transformations and changes have also resulted in certain issues with the journalism that is worrying. I hope you would not mind if I highlighted these issues. Nowadays, everything is subject to reporting. Every moment is available to the scrutiny of millions as things get reported 24/7. This places an enormous pressure not only on the person or professional being reported about, but also on the journalist doing the reporting. In the race for ratings, the important journalistic tenet of verification before publishing is not being followed. This leads to incorrect reporting. The social media amplifies that incorrect news in a matter of seconds. Once published, it is difficult to take back. Unlike print and electronic media, unfortunately, it is almost impossible to hold the social media platforms such as YouTube accountable even after they host most derogatory and defamatory stuff which has potential to ruin careers and lives. You media professionals will have to voluntarily come forward with solutions for such a menace. I advise all of you to follow the principles of natural justice before making adverse comments against someone who is not in a position to defend himself. Another trend that I witness in reporting nowadays is the seeping of ideological stands and biases into the news story. Interpretation and opinions are coloring what should be factual reports. News mixed with views is a dangerous cocktail. Connected to this is the problem of partial reporting of cherry-picking facts to give it a particular color. For instance, select portions of a speech get highlighted, mostly out of context, to suit a certain agenda. Nothing can be more lethal to democracy than the deadly combination of confrontational polity and competitive journalism. Tragically, they feed on each other. Allowing yourself to be co-opted by an ideology or the state is a recipe for disaster. Journalists are like judges in one sense. Regardless of the ideology you profess and the beliefs you hold dear, you must do your duty without being influenced by them. You must report only the facts with a view to give a complete and accurate picture. As the famous US reporter Walter Cronkite said, I quote, "We all have our likes and our dislikes, but when we are doing news, when we are doing the front page news, not the back page news, not the op pages, but when we are doing the daily news, covering politics, it is our duty to be sure that we do not permit our prejudices to show. That is simply basic journalism." Unquote. Another issue that has gained prominence recently is linked to what is called the attention economy. In the hopes of grabbing the eyeballs, the headlines are given for news reports are catchy but misleading. The headlines is often unreflective of the actual content of the reports. It is interpretative and imaginary. The headlines are then shared widely on social media and become the news. The content is forgotten. I can empathize with the pressures journalists are operating under. Experience and reflections suggest that the media organizations run by independent exclusive trusts and by the companies which are only into the business of news are still in a position to ward off the pressures of various kinds to a great extent. The freedom of the press is a sacrosanct constitutional right. From the very beginning, the Supreme Court of India has upheld the freedom of the press as an important facet of our constitution. From Sakal papers and R. Rajagopal to Anuradha Bhasin. However, this freedom comes with an enormous responsibility that must be borne by every individual who is part of the journalistic enterprise, the journalists, editors, and management. As Justice Frankfurter, the judge of US Supreme Court, once said, I quote, "The freedom of the press is not an end in itself, but a means to the end of achieving a free society." Unquote. As the Chief Justice of India, I am restrained from commenting on specific issues that may be under judicial consideration. Let me simply say that the judiciary is a robust pillar. Despite all the constraints, it is working to further constitutional goals. The recent trend to sermonize about judgments and villainize judges needs to be checked. The media must have belief and trust in the judiciary. As a key stakeholder in democracy, media has the duty to defend and protect the judiciary from motivated attacks by evil forces. We are together in the mission of democracy and in promoting national interest. We have to sail together. Coming back to the event organized today, I am glad to see journalists who uphold and represent the highest standards of journalistic ethics being awarded today. The recognition given to them and their work as an important symbol of the standard to be achieved. Their example must be followed by all in the profession. I again congratulate all the awardees. I would like to take a few moments here to congratulate Mr. Prem Shankar Jha, who is received the Lifetime Achievement Award. Mr. Jha has had a long and distinguished career. His reputation for hard work, that highest ethical standards and intellectual rigor is unparalleled in the field. He is an inspiration to journalists and other professionals everywhere. I would like to pay my respects to the late Danish Siddiqui. He was a man with a magical eye and was rightly regarded as one of the foremost photojournalists of this era. If a picture can tell 1,000 words, his photos were novels. Wartime correspondents have always had the most difficult and risky job. His unfortunate passing in Afghanistan again brings to the fore the issue of sufficient safety protocols and protections for journalists in conflict zones. His spouse, Mrs. Danish Siddiqui, joined us online a while ago. My condolences to his family, colleagues and friends. I would also like to take a few moments to pay tribute to all journalists who lost their lives while reporting from the ground during this pandemic. Their reporting was integral for highlighting issues and to bring much needed attention to the plight of our citizens. I thank them for their services. I look forward to your work in the coming year. I hope that you continue to fulfill your all-important constitutional task with passion and commitment. With honest, hard-working and ethical journalists like you, the Democratic Republic of India will continue to progress and achieve new heights. Thank you and wish you all a better and brighter new year.
Sorry, I need to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Chief Justice Ramana, for joining us this evening, sharing your thoughts with us, encouraging words, and for finding the time to be part of RedInk Awards and the Mumbai Press Club's event. I did also feel a little scolded, and I do think this is probably the first time the senior-most judge in the country has told journalists to exercise the principles of natural justice. Well, one of the signature elements of the RedInk Awards every year is the media debate. Now, this year's topic is a contentious one. We've spoken in bits and pieces about this through the course of the evening. Gurbir said a few words, Siddharth said a few words, I did the introduction. The topic is COVID and its impact on news media. And we've got three excellent people to discuss this. Joining us tonight, Siddharth Vardarajan, the founding editor of The Wire, LP Pant, the national brave editor of the Dainik Bhaskar, and moderating this debate is Faye D'Souza, journalist and entrepreneur. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Faye to take this away.
Thank you, Menika Doshi, for that introduction. And it's an honor to be part of the Mumbai Press Club's RedInk Awards and to take stock of all the wonderful work the fraternity has done over the last couple of years. It's been an extremely difficult couple of years for journalists in India. Consider the fact that the network of Women in Media for India have put out data saying that we've lost 474 journalists to COVID, most of whom were on the field when they contracted the virus. It's an extremely worrying number. The other things that hurt journalists perhaps were the fact that when there was coverage that needed to be done in the first wave and the second wave, the journalists were on the field, and then when vaccinations were being handed out, journalists were not considered frontline workers by government, which means a lot of the losses that I told you about could have been avoidable. Also, the massive layoffs that we noticed happened during the lockdown, which meant that many journalists who lost their jobs also lost benefits of healthcare for themselves and their families in the middle of a healthcare crisis. And I suppose it's also a good time for us to take stock of the kind of coverage that we've done as a fraternity in this country during maybe what can be described the worst crisis that has hit us in modern times. Did we as journalists ask enough questions, hold government to accountability, and get the answers that our audience, our readers, our viewers really deserve? These are the questions we're examining in this conversation about journalism and the pandemic. Menika has been kind enough to already introduce my panelists, Mr. L.P. Pant, who's the national editor of the Dainik Bhaskar, and Mr. Siddharth Varadarajan, the founding editor of The Wire. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Varadarajan, if I may start with you. And we've already had one conversation on this topic about the media's job in seeking accountability during the pandemic and whether or not we did justice to that job. Do you believe that history will note the Indian media in a positive light and in the work that we've done over the last year? Or is it going to perhaps be a compartmentalized review?
Well, the Indian media isn't a homogeneous body. And I think history will judge very kindly the record of a section of the media. It will write in golden letters the names of freelance journalists and other reporters who went out there in the field without any kind of institutional backing, without any great protection, and told the kind of stories that needed to be told in the face of the large or the big section of the media basically abdicating responsibility. So I think history will judge one section kindly, but the major section, I think for a variety of reasons, is going to score pretty badly, not just in terms of the failure to educate the public on the medical or epidemiological aspects of the pandemic, but in failing to highlight failures of governance, failures of administration in a timely fashion when they needed to be done so that correctives could be taken. But worst of all, for buying into a certain political narrative that the ruling establishment fostered, in part to cover up its own ineptitude, but also because that's simply what the DNA of the ruling establishment is, which is to use every opportunity to divide the people of India on religious grounds and foster insecurity and foster suspicion. And I think history will be very, very cruel, and rightly so, to that section of the media which played this game and which was complicit in, shall we say, turning the pandemic into an instrument for fostering suspicion, division, insecurity, hatred. And I think this is something that was really quite unforgivable.
I'm going to take this question to Mr. Pant as well. Mr. Pant, Dainik Bhaskar was very vociferous in its coverage. You ran some very strong headlines on your front page, something that was missing from English dailies, for example. It was definitely missing from television. Nobody called a spade a spade. You posted your reporters at crematoriums to actually check and verify numbers vis-a-vis what the government was telling us. And you also, your organization received a raid, which we have seen happen quite often. In your opinion, Mr. Pant, क्या आपके opinion में क्या बोलेंगे कि इंडियन मीडिया ने सही किया, या ऐसे काफी सारे बड़े-बड़े जो न्यूज़पेपर्स पब्लिकेशंस थे, जो अंग्रेजी के पब्लिकेशंस है, जो हमारे नेशनल टेलीविजन चैनल्स हैं, उन्होंने शायद सच नहीं दिखाया?
एक लंबी डिबेट है और ये लगातार इस डिबेट को चलता रहेगा, लेकिन एक जर्नलिस्ट के तौर पर जैसे सिद्धार्थ जी ने बताया, मैं इस दायरे को थोड़ा और खोलना चाहता हूँ। एक जर्नलिस्ट के तौर पर कोरोना की पहली और दूसरी लहर एक पत्रकार के तौर पर मेरे जीवन की सबसे बड़ी कहानी है और सबसे बड़ी परीक्षा भी। दैनिक भास्कर ने अखबार के तौर पर, क्योंकि जब आपके आसपास जब एक मतलब मतलब जीवन की सबसे महत्वपूर्ण और सबसे बड़ी घटना चल रही हो, तो निष्पक्ष और विश्वसनीय रिपोर्ट करना आपकी सबसे बड़ी चुनौती होती है। और दैनिक भास्कर ने वही किया। हमारे आप 2 करोड़ हमारे पास रीडर हैं, और उस वक्त जिस वक्त सरकारी जो डेटा थे वो भ्रम फैला रहे थे, मौत और मरीजों के आंकड़े गलत ढंग से पेश किए जा रहे थे, तो ऐसे में हमारी एक जिम्मेदारी थी, क्योंकि हमारा पाठक उस वक्त बिल्कुल अकेला था, बेबस था, और उसके पास सही और सही जानकारी की सबसे ज्यादा जरूरत थी, और वो भूमिका हमने निभाई। इसने क्या किया वो एक अलग डिबेट है, लेकिन इसमें जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण पहलू है कि भाई हमारे साथ क्या हुआ, ये क्या नहीं हुआ, हमने ये नहीं देखा कि किस राज्य में किसकी सरकार है। उदाहरण के तौर राजस्थान में हमने कोविड पे जिस गलत डेटा पे राजस्थान में स्टोरी की, तो वहाँ कांग्रेस की सरकार है। हमने एमपी में स्टोरीज की, वहां पर बीजेपी की सरकार है। हमने बिहार में स्टोरी की, वहाँ एनडीए की सरकार है। तो हमने ये नहीं देखा कि किस राज्य में किसकी सरकारें हैं, हमने सरकारों से सिर्फ सवाल पूछे, और वो मतलब एक पत्रकार के तौर पर, एक अखबार के तौर पर ये हमारी जिम्मेदारी थी, क्योंकि उस वक्त ये सूचनाएं जिस तरीके से आ रही थी, मतलब मौत और मरीजों के आंकड़े जिस तरीके से मतलब दिखाए जा रहे थे, उसको लेकर हमको लगा कि ये सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है, और एज ए जर्नलिस्ट के तौर पर भी नहीं, एक अखबार के तौर पर हमारी सबसे बड़ी भूमिका ही यही थी। तो वो किसी हेडलाइन का इस्तेमाल किया करना हो, खबरों की कॉपी हो, हमारे कई साथियों ने हमारे साथ काम करने वाले इस महामारी में कई साथियों ने जान भी गंवाई, लेकिन बावजूद उसके हमने जिस आपने देखा होगा कि हमने कैसे काम किया। लेकिन सबसे महत्वपूर्ण पक्ष ये है कि जो झूठ था उसको हमने सच दिखाने की कोशिश की।
मिस्टर पंत, क्या आपको ऐसा भी लगता है कि जिन्होंने जितने पत्रकार ने सच दिखाने की कोशिश की थी उन पे भी दबाव आ गया था उस टाइम पे, जैसे आपके यहाँ रेड पड़ गई थी?
ये तो देखिए क्या होता है कि आप जब किसी भी सरकार से सवाल करते हो तो आपको उसकी कीमत चुकानी होती है। ये तो एक डिबेट, इसमें कोई नई बात नहीं है कोई भी, और ये कोई पहली बार भी नहीं है। लेकिन सवाल महत्वपूर्ण बस ये है कि हम एज ए जर्नलिस्ट के तौर पर, एक अखबार के तौर पर हमारी भूमिका क्या थी। हमने वही भूमिका निभाई है। मैंने जैसे पहले बताया कि हमने किसकी सरकार है, हमने ये नहीं देखा कि किसकी सरकार है, हमने देखा कि सच क्या है।
Mr. Vadarashan, do you agree that this is not new? This kind of pressure on journalists is not new, and it's something that we should be perhaps aware of and prepared for at all times?
Look, pressure of one kind or the other has always been around. But I think in terms of the systematic nature of the pressure being exerted today, the granular nature of the pressure being exerted today, where a reporter in Port Blair could be booked under the Epidemic Diseases Act and other provisions of the IPC simply for tweeting a question to the police about the wisdom of confining to home quarantine an entire family simply because they spoke on the telephone to somebody who has COVID. So in a way, he was mocking the police with a question on Twitter, highlighting a news story that the newspapers in Port Blair had themselves reported, and he got booked under serious provisions of the IPC and had to go to Calcutta High Court a year later before the case was finally thrown out. And that's one example. There are examples from Himachal Pradesh, there are examples from Punjab, plenty of examples from Uttar Pradesh, from Maharashtra, of journalists being, in Tamil Nadu, journalists being penalized, being targeted, being prosecuted, simply for reporting deficiencies in the official response. I'm talking of the first wave mainly here. And frankly, I've never seen anything like this. During the tsunami or other natural disasters or during other moments of national crisis, it's not as if we haven't had challenges that the governments at various levels have had to cope with. But I haven't seen such a systematic effort in targeting individual reporters, targeting editors, targeting publications with punitive measures in the face of their reporting. And I think this is especially unpardonable at a time of a pandemic, because the government and the media really should have seen each other as partners. We are facing a public health emergency. As our colleague from Dainik Bhaskar says, the issue is not one of which party is in power in any particular state. This is not a time for any kind of party politics. And none of us were looking at the political stripe of a party or a government whose ineptitude we were calling out. But the purpose of reporting something was to highlight an issue that may have escaped the notice of the government at the higher level, and to ensure that it gets dealt with. So when a Coimbatore-based local portal reports about shortages in ration shops, the idea isn't to embarrass the Tamil Nadu government or to embarrass the chief minister or to embarrass a local MP. It's to get a problem solved, and the response cannot be to file a criminal case, against the reporter. And we sadly saw a lot of this, and I fear that this may well be the start of a new trend, where the police and state governments and others who don't like a certain line of reporting or a certain line of questioning will increasingly resort to the filing of criminal cases. So I think there is something new about the kind of pressure that we're seeing.
But I want to ask both of you about fact-checking as well. Mr. Pant, I'll start with you. One of the problems that we saw in the media is the lack of fact-checking of a lot of the data that was coming out. You talked about it. They were, sort of Ayurvedic remedies that were launched during the second wave that were carried by the media without questioning, what data they were being offered, why they were union ministers at the launch of these events and things like that. Do you think that at a time when the difference between good information and bad information is life and death, that the media could have done better, Mr. Pant?
जो डेटा है वो देखिए, इस पे तो कोई डिबेट ही नहीं थी डेटा को लेकर जितनी बातें हुई। हमारा सिर्फ यही कहना था कि भाई मौत और मरीजों के आंकड़े सरकारें रोक नहीं सकती हैं, लेकिन सही जानकारी देकर मुझको एज ए रीडर मुझे जागरूक कर सकते हैं। अगर आप मुझे ये बता दें इस बिल्डिंग में आग लगी है तो मैं उस बिल्डिंग में जाने की कोशिश ही नहीं करूंगा, क्योंकि मुझे ये पता है कि वहां जाके मेरी मौत हो सकती है। हमारा सिर्फ यही कहना था कि डेटा को आप सही जानकारी दीजिए ताकि मुझे पता हो कि मेरे आसपास चल क्या रहा है। दूसरा जो फैक्ट, जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण फैक्ट था, जो कोरोना मैनेजमेंट की जो अभी डिस्कस भी हुआ, प्रवासी मजदूरों का जो पलायन है ना, उसने हमारे पूरे सिस्टम को हिला कर रख दिया। कि मतलब कोरोना मैनेजमेंट के ध्वस्त होने की सबसे बड़ी कहानी थी प्रवासी मजदूरों का पलायन। वहीं से शुरुआत हुई कि डेटा को ठीक अलग तरीके से दिखाने की, डेटा को घुमा फिरा कर दिखाने की, डेटा को नए संदर्भों में और नई बचाने की कोशिश की। मुझे लगता है कि पता नहीं कौन लोग थे, किस तरीके के लोग थे, या वो कोरोना जो उसके गलत लोगों के हाथों में वो डेटा था, या वो लोग इतने ठीक नहीं थे कि जो महामारी से लड़ सकते थे। शायद सिस्टम में उन लोगों को ठीक से नहीं रखा गया। ये बहुत सारी दिक्कतें हैं, इसीलिए डेटा सही तरीके से बाहर नहीं आ पाया। मुझे लगता है कि सरकारों ने सही लोगों का चयन नहीं किया वहां पर डेटा मैनेजमेंट कर रखने के लिए या कोरोना मैनेजमेंट करने के लिए। तो ये प्रॉब्लम सिस्टम की प्रॉब्लम थी पूरी की पूरी। मुझे लगता है किसी भी सरकार के सामने बहुत चुनौती, उनके लिए पहली बार वो लड़ रहे थे इस महामारी से, उनके लिए सब कुछ नया था, जैसे हम लोगों के लिए बिल्कुल नया था। तो मुझे लगता है कि थोड़ा सा सिस्टम में कुछ गड़बड़ियां थी, सही लोग सही जगहों पर नहीं थे। जर्नलिस्ट के तौर पर हमने वो किया जो हमको करना चाहिए।
Very well said. Mr. Vadrashan, I want to take this one step further to the actual coverage that happened on the ground, the colleagues that we lost, 474 on last count, and the manner in which we as a fraternity managed to protect our journalists. We know a lot of journalists lost their jobs, from some very reputed organizations that laid off people. In your opinion, could that situation have been handled better?
Of course, it should have been handled better, but we are in a situation where over a lengthy period of time, 2 or 3 decades, you've had a weakening of labor protection laws across the board, but especially in the media. So the kind of protections that working journalists enjoyed in the past no longer exist, and some of the biggest offenders are major newspapers. And sadly, the journalists' unions themselves are weak. Most journalists are perhaps not even members of journalist unions. So yeah, the ability of journalists as a collective to respond and articulate and raise this as a point of concern has been, is much weaker today than it might have been, say, 3 decades ago. And sadly, the courts are not receptive. Governments, of course, political parties are not willing to rub media houses the wrong way, especially if there's a large media house that's laid off, say, 100 people. You will find virtually no political party willing to criticize it because they all hope to benefit from a cozy relationship with that media house, right? So there are structural problems here, which decades of weakening, institutional, the weakening collective nature of our organizing has created, which is kind of difficult to get away from. But I think that if you were to separate out the layoffs as one issue, the threat to health as another, and then the legal threats as another, I think that it is inexcusable that the media fraternity as a whole has failed to react unitedly to the legal threats that reporters are being subjected to. Because don't forget, here, this is one case where literally an injury to one is an injury to all. If we allow journalists working for XYZ organization to be prosecuted or arrested for coverage that they do, then tomorrow there's no telling where the guillotine is going to fall, right? And I think that this failure to recognize the fact that an assault on the media's ability to cover a story will ultimately end up affecting all of us, regardless of our individual political inclinations, regardless of our individual, broader affinities, is a major failure of the Indian media, which I think we are in many ways already living to regret, because the hammer is coming down on more and more organizations as we are seeing.
लेकिन मिस्टर पंत, आपने 2-3 बार बोला कि निष्पक्ष रिपोर्टिंग करने में अभी इश्यूज है, आपके ख्याल में क्यों हो रही है?
ये मैंने बताया ना, इस सिस्टम में जो लोग हैं वो कोई आलोचना सुनना पसंद नहीं करते, तो ये मतलब ये ह्यूमन नेचर भी नहीं है। मतलब इस तरीके की चीजें बनने लगी हैं, व्यवस्था ऐसे बनने लगी हैं, लेकिन ये कोई नई बात नहीं है। बस ये थोड़ा सा इसमें थोड़ा ज्यादा कुछ कम हो सकती है, लेकिन निष्पक्ष और विश्वसनीय रिपोर्टिंग एक चुनौती है। और ये कभी मतलब इसका दायरा थोड़ा खुल गया है, लेकिन ये कभी ऐसा नहीं है कि हमेशा से ऐसा रहा है, ये हमेशा चुनौती रहा है।
Mr. Batash, I also want to bring you in on the fact that even today, in most of our states, in almost all of our states, journalists are not considered frontline workers. We don't know whether we're done with COVID. We don't know if Omicron is going to be a new variant of concern in India. Should there be, again, a larger, more cohesive voice from the media demanding that reporters who go out in the field, who are on the ground, be treated as frontline workers when it comes to vaccinations and priorities on healthcare?
I mean, I think when it's done, I mean, it wasn't done immediately, but I think gradually most state governments came around to the view that they ought to treat journalists in the field as frontline workers. And I think that, if I were to today draw, if you were to ask me which is the larger threat that we face as reporters, is it on the public health front? In other words, inability to access PPE or vaccinations or other things that as frontline workers we should get, or is it the danger of legal action for the work that we do? I would say it's very much the latter. A reporter this is, and it's clearly spread beyond the pandemic. Like look at the treatment that journalists who went to Tripura were meted on, right? Being hounded, being booked for sedition. Look at Siddiq Kapan's case. It's been more than a year that he's been in jail, unable to make bail. Look at the fate that our colleagues in Jammu and Kashmir are subjected to, where they do stories on different issues, not just the pandemic, but say human rights issues, and they get summoned to the police station for questioning. This is what I think is increasingly disturbing, and this is happening all over the country to varying degrees. That the police and the local district administration and state governments and chief ministers somehow think it is okay to hector and bully and to target journalists for the work that they do. And so if there is a third wave, you can be sure that journalists who are reporting the third wave, and if some of that reporting involves highlighting governmental failure, they will be targeted, just as they are being targeted for reporting human rights violations or communal clashes. So this is what I think disturbs me a great deal, and it was quite heartening. On several occasions we've heard the Honorable Chief Justice of India speak about the importance of investigative reporting, speak about the importance of freedom of the press. The Apex Court has been rather aware of the need to protect these freedoms, but that awareness hasn't filtered down all the way to the judiciary at every level. And I think that's what the police and governments count on, that when they take action against a journalist or a reporter, it takes time before her case, she's able to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And chances of getting relief at the local level often can be quite slim. So I think that the sensitivity that the Chief Justice of India and his colleagues have shown towards freedom of the press needs to be internalized across the board by the judiciary, of course, but also by public officials, by the police, by chief ministers and state ministers, because the media is an integral part of keeping democracy in India alive.
I want to now just move to possible solutions, because during the pandemic, when it was the turn to get vaccinated, we remember the Mumbai Press Club particularly raised funds from sponsors, actually sourced the vaccinations and offered it to journalists in Mumbai, saying, here are the, we will get you vaccinated. You don't have to wait for anyone else. Do you think that, given, Mr. Madhurajan, I'll ask the same question of Mr. Pant as well, do you think that since you believe at this point, you said that the legal challenges are perhaps more severe, that organizations like the Mumbai Press Club should maybe raise funds to put forward legal representation for journalists who are particularly working as freelancers, who are working out of smaller platforms, who might not be able to afford the big gun, sort of legal responses?
प्रॉब्लम मैम क्या जो स्टेट के जो प्रेस क्लब हैं वो लगभग खत्म होने की स्थिति में है। जैसे सिद्धार्थ जी ने बताया कि जर्नलिस्ट यूनियन भी बिल्कुल लगभग खत्म होने की स्थिति में है। एक चुनौती बना हुआ है, लगातार चुनौती बना हुआ है कि हमारे होने को खारिज करने की कोशिशें लगातार तेज हो रही है, बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रही है। हम सिर्फ इतना ही कहते हैं कि भाई अब जैसे कि दैनिक भास्कर है, सारी सरकारें उनके दोस्त हुआ करती थी कोविड से पहले, लेकिन जैसे कोविड आया, जैसे हमने उनके खिलाफ लिखना शुरू किया, सब हमारे दुश्मन हो गए सारी सरकारें। तो ये चलता रहेगा हमेशा, लेकिन हम सबसे यही कहते हैं कि आप हमसे सहमत या असहमत हो सकते हैं, लेकिन हमारा बचा रहना जरूरी है।
Very well said. Gentlemen, this brings us to the close. So thank you so much for joining us here at the RedInk Awards 2021 by the Mumbai Press Club. It has been a pleasure to speak with both of you. And thank you for the work that your teams have done over the last 2 years of putting forward the truth for the citizens of India. Back then again to Meghna.
All right, Faye, thanks very much. A big thank you to Siddharth and LP Pant. As Mr. Pant said that, कोई भी सरकार से सवाल उठाने की कीमत तो चुकानी पड़ती है. That's t-shirt material, I think, for journalists in this country nowadays. Well, with that, I'm going to have to say goodbye. We are at the end of our evening. The RedInk Awards will definitely be back next year. That's 2022. And we hope to be back earlier next year, not wait till the second half of the year. So do keep a close watch. Remember to send in your entries. This is an award by the fraternity, for the fraternity, and it is an incredible recognition by peers. So watch out for the RedInk Awards 2022 edition. I want to congratulate all the winners tonight. And thank you very much to both the main journalists tonight, whose work has honored us and has given us an opportunity to share with you. Thank you very much, Prem Shankar Jha, for being here with us all evening. Thank you to the Chief Justice. Thank you to the Mumbai Press Club. And thank you to my friends at Wizcraft, the team led by Sunil, that is steadfastly over the last several years been putting these awards together almost flawlessly, with the exception of, I think, sometimes a few chinks like the music tonight. Now, a big thank you to all our sponsors as well: Zee Entertainment, Glenmark Pharmaceuticals, India Bulls Housing, Aditya Birla Group, L&T Financial Services, Viacom 18, AdFactors PR, and one more partner to thank besides Wizcraft, and that is Open Design. The virtual lobby is open for those of you who have registered and joined the event, the awards event tonight. So you can hang out, share notes, Unfortunately, if you've tuned in through a social media platform like Facebook, then you will find it difficult to converse with some of your peers. Thank you very much for all of you for joining us tonight. See you next year. I'm Menaka Doshi signing out.
There is a price to bringing truth to light. We pay it with our sweat. We pay it with our freedom, our safety, our health. We pay it with our loved ones, our family, our sanity. We pay it without asking the cost of the sacrifice. We pay it without stopping to even think of the price. We pay it with our bodies. We pay it with our blood. The truth is black and white, and the ink it needs is red. Celebrating 10 years of bringing truth to light.